Hello everyone and welcome to the Final Fantasy XII challenge that absolutely no one ever has been waiting for. So let's jump right into it and ask ourselves this question. Can I beat Final Fantasy XII without dealing any damage? A little more emphasis as to why I decided to try and do this particular challenge is the more I thought about it, Vaan's just a normal person, you know? He doesn't have any special abilities, no heritage, no powers, nothing. He's just a complete normie. So why not try and roleplay as him in-game and just not have him do anything during combat? No damage at all, ever. So not only is Vaan going to be leeching through the entire game, we're going to have some more rules put in place as well, such as we are not going to have the ability to use magic, summons, technics, or quickenings. We're not going to have the ability to buy anything ever, such as shops, bazaars, and chocobos. The only damage that can be output is going to be from normal attacks. No ultimate weapons or armor. No glitches, exploits, hacks, mods, free or paid DLC if there are any. And once more, mandatory rule breaks do not count. For example, forced interactions, cutscenes, or tutorials that require us to do one of the rules that we have decided to ban ourselves against. So with this being my first challenge run in video editing, so to speak, it was really quite the big learning experience, learning how to do all this, and there's already a lot of things that I've noticed that I could do a lot better on my next challenge run. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into the action. Hope you guys enjoy. Since this first mob isn't mandatory for us to kill, we go ahead and leash him over to the first pseudo-boss and let everyone else do the killing for us. We stand back and let them all do their thing, and eventually the boss falls and then we get to move on. We come across our first save point, we go ahead and use it and then head up the stairs where we must fight and kill 3 guards. There is no way around this, there is no timer, and eventually I did die twice trying to figure out an alternative besides killing them, but it is what it is. It doesn't break the rules since this is mandatory, so we go ahead and do that, and we almost die, but we are able to go down and heal and move on. Reaching the door at the end of the linear path, we go ahead and poke it and the doors magically fly open. We go ahead and skip the cutscene, and now we are in control of Vaan. Vaan, for all intents and purposes, is going to be the main character through this playthrough, and with these rats we do take a lot of damage. We also got another couple game overs trying to figure out an alternative way besides dealing damage to these things with our normal attack, but there was no way around it, so we go ahead and do that and progress the storyline. We skip the cutscene and now we are back in town where we need to talk to Miguel and then accept our first hunt, the Rogue Tomato. Now the Rogue Tomato is going to be another mandatory fight, and I know what you're thinking. How many mandatory fights are you going to have to where you don't break the rules? Well, I believe this is only the second to last one. There is one later in the game, but we'll get to that when it comes. So we go ahead and do some normal attacks to the tomato, and then we kill it and then turn it in. Next, we head over to the clan hall and talk to the guild leader, who will be giving us rewards for our natural progression of the game and for however many hunts that we complete. Then we will head over to Lowtown and talk to Old Man Dallin and ask him for his jewels. I mean, just a jewel. He tells us to get lost and never come back, so we go ahead and take a trip over to the Xezat Plains, which is south of the city. We go ahead and hold R2 to flee, so that way we don't attack any mobs, and now we have to run across a woman who wants us to find her son, Jin. This is also where we get our first party member, Penelo, so once again, we don't attack anything at this time, and we continue on with the story. Jin gives us a shade stone that we need to charge up to 100% through the stones in Xezat Plains. We go ahead and save our game and then continue on. From here, we do have the opportunity to start leveling up, but we chose not to and just continue with the storyline charging up jewels. At 100%, we return to Jin with the stone, and his ankle is miraculously feeling better. Can we please get a ref to give him a red card? We really don't allow floppers here. He wants to race us back to town, and off screen we actually trip him and shove his face in the dirt and then proceed back to town where we win the race. We go ahead and save it and then revisit Old Dallin, who tells us that there's a secret passage through the waterway to get to the palace. So we go ahead and save our game and then proceed that way. Once again holding R2 to flee because we don't have any party members to kill any of the mobs for us at this point. We proceed up the stairs into the palace where a gorgeous cinematic appears and Fran and Balthair are introduced to us. After the cinematic, we go ahead and grab the map, and then with the help of a resident, we call the guard a name, and then we literally high-five him as we walk right by him and up to the stairs. We activate the lion signet with the stone that we have, and then we touch the green doohickey thingy in the wall to reveal a secret passage. We grab the treasure, and Vaan starts to look for a way out as a cinematic unfolds. Now, as a reminder, this game did come out in the PS2 area, and these cinematics still look top-notch in my opinion. There's so much detail, especially with the airship, the dust, the lights, everything. So I'm going to go ahead and let the rest of this cinematic play out for us. We end up crashing, and this is now the first time that Balthair and Fran have joined our party. This is also the first opportunity we have to change our gambits. So what we decided to do after some testing is have our first gambit on attack lowest HP mob, so that way both characters are attacking the same target. It did take me a while to kind of figure out which gambit we needed to use, because initially with their regular setup, I would run up to a mob and they were set to target whatever the party leader is targeting. And since Vaan isn't actually attacking or targeting anything, nothing was happening. Continuing along the sewers, we come across a damsel who is in need of rescuing, and I don't remember why I'm controlling Balthair here, but we clean up the mobs, and now we have a guest named Amalia in our party. Now, a guest is like a fourth party member that we cannot directly control, but Amalia can heal as well as attack, so we naturally use Vaan, run around because we don't want to do any damage, and all the flans eventually fall. So now that we have a guest in our group, we're going to take full advantage of it and go ahead and level up a decent bit. I think we gained about 2 levels so far. After that, we go ahead and save it, and then we are on to our first boss, the Fire Main. The Fire Main doesn't really do that much damage, but we weren't really paying attention, and then Amalia does die. So we res her, and then we stick on top of our healing, and then the boss eventually does go down with the help of the rest of the party. Some cutscenes occur, and then we find ourselves in Nulbina dungeons with just Balthair and Vaan. We try and go through to this boss fight, and we just get absolutely booty clapped. There was no shot that we were going to be able to complete this. So we reload a previous save and do some more grinding while we have Amalia and Fran in the group. We do have to re-kill Fire Main, which wasn't really that big of an issue. Nobody died, so we didn't have to expend any Phoenix Downs. We then retry the fight, and we were able to beat it. One of the strategies that we used was trying to get in front of the mob and Balthair so that way he can do all of the damage. A cutscene occurs, we regain control of Fran, and now we have another guest in our party named Bosch, so this makes 4 people. We go ahead and hit the save point, and now we are at the hardest area in the game that we have been in so far. The hard part about this is, 1, the lack of healing items. 2 is we did try and grind here for a little bit, but we weren't able to keep the energy up above, I think, like 30%, and then the lights go out, and when the lights go out, the mobs just start to overwhelm us, and we can't get very far with only having these people do the damage because I'm not able to continuously heal them. So we probably spent, oh man, like maybe 2.5 hours trying to get through this place, but we did manage to eventually do it after a lot of leveling up as well. As you can see here, that big bug on the left, we need to kill it, and if we don't do enough damage to it quickly, it starts to eat more power and starts to regen itself. We have several game overs in here, probably half dozen or so. All of the unedited clips are going to be on my YouTube or Patreon. Haven't really decided yet, but you'll be able to see the full playthrough of this place over there. I think it's at this point that we really decided we need to start learning the license board to get more HP to start pushing through this place. We did have Vaan go Knight to try and take an initial hit better when aggroing the mobs. We did have Fran go Archer because she is a beast of an archer, the best stats for it actually out of all the characters. And she also starts off with the bow and she's ranged, so it's pretty good. We do have Balthair learn machinist. I was originally thinking that we wanted to try and have people use measures or sextants, but it's way too far into the game to where we can actually acquire those to make that kind of a challenge run possibility. So moving on, we do encounter the Mimic Queen. With everyone's gambit targeting the lowest HP mob first, they are all attacking the same target, and then the boss does eventually fall, and we do keep healing everyone to make sure that we don't die ourselves. Another cutscene occurs. We go back to talk to Old Dallin, we talk to Dalzak. Bosch rejoins the group. We go to the bar where Fran and Balthier rejoin the party, and now we have access to another beautiful cutscene to where we are taking Strahl for a ride over to Bujerba, and more particularly the Lushu mines. This is our first encounter with Lamont, who becomes a guest party member, and he is one of the best, if not the best, guest character in the entire game. We take full advantage of this and gain a massive amount of experience in LP and start filling out our license point board. We probably spend maybe 30 to 45 minutes down here in this area before progressing the storyline, just leveling up on this bridge off of these skeletons, getting a whole bunch of drops and chain bonus for higher EXP. This is an amazing time to be utilizing this character. As we proceed deeper, we are then chased out, and Lamont is running as fast as he can, and we have to chase after him to escape the bad guys following us. We proceed back to the beginning of the mines where another cutscene occurs, and we see Penelo with Lamont, which is a little bit weird from our perspective right now. I wonder what's going on. And then for the part that we almost always all know, we go around the town, start spreading lies, and then we are finally caught and taken back into a dark room where nothing unusual happens. We are then taken to the Marquise's manor, and we start talking to him, and he's just like, no, you're gonna go and talk to the Empire. Another cutscene occurs, and we find ourselves on the Leviathan with Vossler as our new guest. Now, Vossler is a heavy physical damage dealer who also makes a really good tank. This is a great opportunity, just like when we had Lamont and Amalia, to gain a massive amount of experience, and this is the best place so far in this game to do that. With the alerts consistently going off and running through the red tripwires, mobs will constantly come at you, and you build that chain bonus up. And with humanoids, with this particular type of run through, humanoids are the best mob for us to fight. One, they drop potions, and then they can drop high potions as well as Phoenix Downs once you start building that chain bonus up. If or when I start to get low on HP, I always go back to the save point and touch it, which will heal us up, but it will also get rid of our chain bonus. So the chance of a high potion or Phoenix Down dropping is drastically reduced, but you know what? I still think it's worth it because we're getting potions right now. We do spend probably another 30 minutes, maybe 45 minutes in this zone, continuously grinding. It's pretty well worth it, as the only type of healing that we have is through items, which is going to be via Vaan. So the potions right here are invaluable, and we start to burn through them a lot very, very soon. So I'm pretty glad that we did this. We did end up having a game over or two here just because I got careless and didn't get back to the save point in time, but all of that is edited out. You can always find that on the undoctored footage that is probably going to be on YouTube or my Patreon. We are continuously getting inflicted with blind, which I don't really like curing, mainly because there's really not a good reliable source of trying to get the eye drops back. These humanoid mobs aren't a very good source of dropping the eye drop, so we try and use the save point as needed to try and cure that status effect. However, that does reduce our chain bonus again. We continuously go back to the save point to try and heal up, which is also right next to where we can regain Amalia, which we now know is Lady Ash, or the princess. And she does have the option of becoming a part of our party, but we opt not to use her at this point. And I'm pretty surprised by it because she's always been in my final party in every playthrough that I've ever done of this game. Same with Fran. So this is also my first time using Balthier. I've never used Penelo in any of my playthroughs, and I'm not going to be starting at this run. I've also never used Bosch until this playthrough either, so that's also a first. Bosch is an extremely high physical attack damage dealer, especially with two-handed weapons, so we will be using him later in the run. We're getting a pretty good stock of potions now for recovery items, and we're also getting more HP nodes on the license board, as well as trying to go for the nodes that make potions heal for more and Phoenix Downs heal for more as well, and reduce action time, all of the good stuff. We go ahead and save it and then continue onward, and as we're escaping, we run into Lamont and Penelo, where Penelo rejoins the party, Vossler leaves, and then we are on our first boss fight, the Judge Gius. Now, Judge Gius, whatever, is pretty straightforward. Because of the gambits, all the ads are being targeted down first. We continue to wail on him with Balthier and Fran, and while keeping everyone healed with potions. Once we get off of the Leviathan with a stolen Atomos, we go back to the Marquise's manor, and he's just like, oh my god, you guys survived. Okay, now I know that you're for real, and you're the princess. After a few cutscenes, we find ourselves in the desert and get asked to kill this turtle. We do just that. I guess you could say this turtle wasn't turtly enough for the Turtle Club, huh? We go back to the clan member who asked our help, and lo and behold, the queen literally evaporates him into the Shadow Realm for asking for outsiders' help. We save our game and continue on to the Tomb of Wraithwall, where we fight Garuda outside. Garuda wasn't really that much of a issue. We did use more Phoenix Downs than I expected, though. I should have reloaded the game and retried it, but you know what, whatever. We beat it, we're moving on. We save the game, then head inside the tomb where the first demon wall can be skipped, and on the second demon wall we did about 4 or 5 game overs, and then we finally replaced Fran because she had her initial weapon and didn't have an upgraded bow. We used Bosch. We buttered the boss's bread, and then we finished the tomb and then headed outside for another beautiful cutscene. I forgot to include some footage of killing Belias, but we did do it with all the rules in place. We then clear the tomb, exit, and then we get captured by Judge Gish, and we now fight Vossler. Due to different beliefs, Vossler thinks that saving Dalmasca relies with the Empire controlling everything, and so a difference of opinion, just like real life, we fight over it, and we almost died to him, actually. We use a lot of Phoenix Downs, and we actually burn through an elixir trying to survive this fight, but we eventually do it, and we continue on and clear a couple hunts afterwards. It's at this point in the game where I really start wondering how we can get better gear and weapons, and that's when I came across a chest guide for Zodiac Age. The chest guide will be linked in the description, and basically what it shows you is a picture of every single zone, the chest with the appearance rate, and what items can be obtained. And so we go through all of Giza Plains, and we collect all the gear that we need or don't need, and we usually collect 2 to 3 of every single accessory. We go on to kill the rock toys as well back in the Lushu mines, and then we go back to farming this particular chest to try and get a cure emote, which I don't think we got one when we farmed this chest for like 10 minutes or so. Throughout the entire game, we're going to be doing a lot of chest farming for gear and recovery items. Since Vaan is the only option we have to heal people, we have to use these recovery items. And if we run low, we can't just buy them from shops, since that's off limits as well. So no magic and no technics. So we're kind of SOL, and we continue to farm and farm and farm until I think that we're good on what we have, and then we can start progressing through the storyline again. Proceeding with the storyline, Lamont, aka Larsa, joins our party, and then we head off to the bunny village, which I can't even pronounce, so I'm not even going to try. And here we have the biggest smirk on Penelo's face right now in the bunny village. Just look at what she's doing with her hands. I think she wants to grab something. What are you doing? Vaan tries to act all tough and says, we're not leaving until you let us see Miriam. And then the residents are just like, you know what? Okay, fine, leave, go, get her. We don't even know where she's at right now anyway. So we give a potion to the guard who lets us borrow a chocobo, and this again doesn't break the rules because we're not actually buying anything. We go to the Keen, I don't know, whatever mines. We go down to the deepest steps that we can, where we start a boss fight called Tiamat. Tiamat does a lot of physical attacks, but Larsa does a pretty good job at keeping himself up, and we don't actually do anything during this fight. We are just acting like a cheerleader. Lo and behold, Miriam is there, but turns out she was possessed, so we bring her back to the village, and now they are so thankful, and they give us an item, and then we get to leave. Miriam's just like, oh my god, how could we let this happen? And then the elder sister's just like, yeah, well, that's just the way the world works. Now stay here with us, and everyone else can leave. We leave the village with Larsa still in our party, and we head east, hit the save point, and then move on to the next area where we fight our next boss, the Elder Worm. The Elder Worm has 2 treant ads that I didn't even know he had until I read the guide, and because of our gambits the way they are, those mobs died pretty much instantly, since the lowest HP mob is always getting attacked first. The boss does do status effects, which we do cure with Vaan, and as we see here, we're not really doing anything of value in this entire fight. So once again, Alarsa MVP. Continuing eastward, we go to the Paramina Rift, which is the biggest difference in gear and recovery items via chests that we've had so far. The potions start to turn into high potions, and I'll go ahead and include a screenshot here of a potion that I farmed about 50 or 60 of for like 45 minutes. That chest is super strong. It was a complete game changer, no pun intended. We do cycle through all of the areas, getting all of the gear that we need and at least 2 accessories if the chest did have an accessory. We then continue on to the Feywood, which should be way out of our league at this point, but I think that we're so high leveled that this place is really good for experience right now. So we spend a little bit of time here gathering the chests, doing what we need to do here, and then eventually we do continue on with the storyline at Mount Bur Ominous. We go up to the top, we talk to the Elder, we have a gorgeous cinematic, and over the course of a couple cutscenes, we have Judge Gabranth killing another judge who stuck up for what she believes in, for the laws, and she paid the price. How dare you have an opinion? We go ahead and backtrack and kill the Wyvern Lord, and then Enkilados, I think is how you say it. We kill him, and then we go and try and take on the Ringworm, and he just completely puts us in the sand, literally. So we go ahead and run from that, and then go back to Paramina Rift, and continue on to the next area. Next up is the Still Shrine of Miriam. There isn't really anything special about this place. Do keep in mind to activate the initial teleporter, as well as all teleporters. You do need to have the Dawn Shard equipped, otherwise you are forced into a fight with 3 enemies. You could build up a chain bonus if you want. Towards the end, you will see a green crystal, which you do need to destroy if you want to use it. And then we proceed to try and turn 3 statues towards the center big statue in the building. The 3rd statue is locked behind an Esper, and as we are forced into the fight, we notice everyone's HP bar is extremely low, and we kind of panic a little bit, and then we change everyone's accessories to try and eke out a little bit more damage. We have the Pheasant Necklace, neck something, on Vaan that increases our healing output, which is one of his best in slot items, at least for the challenge that I'm trying to do. From here, we just continue to auto attack, and the boss does go down. Not much of an issue on this one. After rotating the 3rd statue in place, we go and fight my favorite Esper, Mateus. I mean, look at them hips move. Nah, but seriously, the reason she's my favorite is because she is ice element based, and ice in the fantasy genre is usually my favorite, followed by lightning. This boss isn't anything special. We do the normal, we heal if needed, and she just goes down to auto attacks. Exiting the Still Shrine of Miriam, we encounter another beautiful cutscene, and then Fran's just like, "Oh my god, what is that?" And then everyone's just like, "Oh my god, I don't know, let's go check it out." So we head up to the Mount Bur Ominous, whatever, however you say it. We fight Judge Bergen, and Judge Bergen is nothing to worry about. He does get one of our party members low. Our next destination is Morpherin High Wastes, which is a absolutely fantastic place for experience and further gear upgrades. So we do spend a lot of time here getting what we need from the chests, saving, battle chains, EXP, LP, and then we're on to the Salika Wood, where again, we start ravaging all these chests for what we need. Upon furthering the storyline, we come across Moogles that we need access to repair a bridge. So we go ahead and do that. We repair the bridge, and then we are on to one of the best areas for gearing up, Fawn Coast. Fawn Coast, just like any other area of progression, has more upgraded loot. So we do spend maybe another 30 to 45 minutes going through all of the zones, in and out, collecting the chests, getting more recovery items, maybe some dispel motes. We do get more accessories, we get better weapons, we get better gear. We save multiple times, build up EXP, get LP, start learning more of the LP board, etc., and then we finally move on to one of the most frustrating areas, in my opinion, The Tachita Uplands. This area, in my opinion, is one of the most frustrating areas in the game, mainly because the chest spawn rates as well as the items in them have a drastically reduced value, but that doesn't stop us from continuously going through all of these zones again and still getting the upgrades that we want and need. Additionally, just like every other area as well, we start grinding some experience and LP and using the save point as needed in between the chest routes. Here's a screenshot of the most valuable chests in the game, in my opinion, the Hastega chest and the reverse chest. You can keep going in between the zones to farm these over and over and over, and at the same time you can also have a chance to collect cure emotes as well as remedy. So we do that for about, I don't know, 30 minutes or so, and then we continue on to the Sochin Cave Palace. We dive deeper and then we start to fight these 5 Mandragoras. Once again, because we have the Gambits targeting the lowest mob, everyone's attacking the same target and then they all fall down one by one. Continuing through the cave, we decide to not do the water puzzle, just to try and get through this area a little bit quicker. This next boss, once he starts to get low, he starts to split himself up, and because of that, we don't really know who the real one is. He starts to dish out some status effects like Doom, which can be fixed with the remedy. As long as you have the license board remedy 3, which cures Doom, you should be fine. The immobilization effect really only hurts 2 people of the 3, but Fran being ranged doesn't really matter, and the boss does eventually go down. We find ourselves out of the sewer and just into another one in Old Arcades. For here, this is probably one of my most least favorite zones starting anyway. After we go up to the guards, they block our way, and then Balthier's old friend Jules mentions, hey, you need chops, and then Vaan's just like, hey, what are chops? Like pork chops? And then Jules is just like, no, you chops as an information. So we go around and talk to everyone. We gather some chops. We go back to Jules with that information, and he's just like, all right, let me put a plan in place, bro. And then he does. The Mughals, of all people, start a riot. Can you believe that? A riot. So with the distraction, we go ahead and lily-dally up the stairs, past the guards, and then into the main Empire town, Arcades. Balthier decides to leave us for a little bit, but he mentions that he'll be back. So we head over to the fake taxi, and they won't accept our services because we aren't paying up, which is a little bit ridiculous. You'd think that a fake taxi would, want customers, but that doesn't happen. Anyway, Jules appears here and tells us that we need some more chops, and we're just like, okay, I guess we'll pay you the 2,500. So we go around and collect all 28 chops, even though we need 3 just in case we're going to do some more side content later. Another great cutscene, and we are on to the Draklor Laboratory. This area is a perfect place for experience, LP, and just overall item gathering for recovery items, because once again, all the enemies here are humanoids. If you stand and camp outside floor 67 elevator, they will continuously come, and as you can see, I had a 64 chain there before. I was just like, all right, let's start continuing with the game. We come across an NPC called Redis, who was actually the initial intruder. After the cutscene follows, we start to face Dr. Sid, and because of the gambits we have set up, all the ads die, and then the actual fight starts. We re-equip some accessories to try and get a little bit more healing out of everyone, and Dr. Sid's attacks look really, really cool. This particular phase of Dr. Sid isn't anything to write home about though, and he soon falls. Another cutscene follows, and we find ourselves back at the port, and we continue north through the city up to the save point and naturally save our game. We try to take on a few mobs in the Sarobi Steep, and we quickly realize that they're just a little bit above us right now, so we go ahead and back out and proceed with the main storyline back to Giruvegan through the Feywood. We've already been here before, but a mist was blocking us, so now Ash is just like, hey, let's go in here now. Oh, and the way is clear. Cool. So we proceed forward. As we step through the next area, we are greeted by Rafflesia, a cool-sounding plant with a bad attitude. Blind is a common status effect and can reduce everyone's MP to 0, which isn't an issue for us since we don't even use MP. The boss falls very quickly. We keep heading south on the map until we reach our first major open area. For here, we need to find one of the gazebo-type structures and stand in the middle. If we have an action icon, we do it, and we need to rotate the camera angle until we see a jungle. we need to head in that direction to the next gazebo and activate the next circle pattern that's on the ground. This will eventually lead us to the door of Giruvegan, where we are forced to summon Elias. We use the save crystal inside and then backtrack to the previous two areas to farm all of the gear, armor, weapons, etc. from these areas before continuing on to the next boss fight, Daedalus. Daedalus is a super heavy physical attacker that literally makes Bosch his Upon getting into low health, he absolutely WTFs Bosch and Fran into the ground and then sets sights on Vaan. In preparation for what was to come, I went ahead and censored this out because I have no idea what he is about to do to us. I rapidly try and get a Phoenix down on Fran. I don't really know why I decided to do it on Fran. I guess because she was ranged and he was already targeting me, so she would have a better chance at getting him. At least that's what I think that I thought. So anyway, it works, we save it, and we continue inside Giruvegan. Giruvegan is actually a pretty cool place. I really like the aesthetics of this area. So as with any new place, the experience is pretty nice. The EXP, the LP, it's all pretty worth it. We do our round, we gather the chests, and we do grind here for about 10 to 15 minutes trying to level up a little bit. I don't recall if I got a game over right here, but we do lose a couple party members because I wasn't paying enough attention with trying to heal on 4 times speed, and they eventually go down, but it's nothing a couple Phoenix downs can't fix. So we finish the area and then we go ahead and save and heal up at the save crystal that's just down these steps before we continue on to the boss fight. Be sure to grab the chests in this area as they are full of goodies, and then when we are done and ready, make sure to save our game. We proceed down the middle path where we fight our next boss fight. So now we face Tyrant. I've always really liked this boss because of the platform that we're on. Just looks really cool with that super big meteorite looking Deathicite right behind us. So for this boss Tyrant, he does have the ability to block your entire party from using technics, which doesn't affect us, just like one of the previous bosses blocked us from using Magick. So all we have to really do here is just be on our healing game with Vaan, making sure that nobody actually dies. But we do lose Fran and Bosch, and right here I kind of go into a little bit of a panic mode. But as I started rezzing, the boss does eventually fall. So we go ahead and backtrack, save it, and then we continue deeper on into the Great Crystal. So for anyone who's actually played this far and been inside the Great Crystal, you would know that your mini-map is not accessible. Everything is hidden. So I'm not even going to bother trying to explain what I'm doing here. We're just going to skip ahead to the boss fight because I really didn't like this area. So this next fight took me a couple tries. This is the Esper Xezat, the Whisperer. So the boss is weak towards one element but absorbs all of the others. I couldn't quite figure that out for, I don't know, maybe like 30 seconds to a minute or so. I kept wondering why the boss kept healing, and then I was just like, oh my god, I have people with elemental weapons. And so I changed that out, and then I see that Bosch dies. And I'm just like, okay, well, I better res him. And then Fran dies. And then Vaan dies. And I'm just like, oh man, what am I going to do here? Can we even beat this? So I make sure everyone's gambits are in place. I try and equip people with the best gear. And unfortunately, it just wasn't enough. We couldn't eke out enough damage to kill the boss. So we do die. We get a game over. Restart it. Unequip the elemental weapons. And then we eventually kill the boss. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. Esper obtained. Shortly afterwards, we use the teleporter, and then we encounter another amazing cutscene where Ash does some things, talks with some people, and then we have another cutscene where Larsa decides to finally stand up for himself and be like, hey, big bro, you need to stop this, like, yesterday. After the cutscene, we are in control of Vaan, so we go ahead and go to the port and talk to Redis, and whoa, hold on a second. Can we all just take a moment to admire the style, curvature, and color of Redis's sideburns? That is some next level stuff. After admiring the view, Redis joins us as our last guest of this entire playthrough. So if there's any unfinished business that we need to do, including espers, hunts, side quests, or anything combat related, now would be a great time before we head off to the Ritter on a Cataract and then Bahamut. I've never really been a fan of the official pronunciation of the word Bahamut. I always thought it was Bahamut because of the earlier days in Final Fantasy when you couldn't actually hear how it was pronounced. It was all just through text, just kind of like how Tifa's name is Tifa, not Tifa, as well as Titus's being Titus. I know I can't be the only one who got all their names wrong. Anyways, we go ahead and wrap up a couple more hunts: the King Bomb, the Ringworm, Marlith, and Ixtab. While we're down in the Zertanan Caverns, we do stumble across the Esper Adramelech the Wroth, which was a pretty cool fight. It probably would have been a lot more interesting if I wasn't as high leveled. The mechanics of the fight are pretty straightforward though. We tank and spank, we heal, we cure status alignments, and then he falls. We prepare Thanksgiving dinner with the Cluckatrace. The feral retriever retrieved his last bone. Vorpal Bunny can't run away from his child support payments. Atomos gets vanquished. And Darksteel also gets melted down. The next hunt took me quite a few tries. The Lindworm was one tough beast to try and beat. Started off with a Dispel Mote to get rid of its Protect, and it didn't like that very much. The physical damage output was pretty high, and I didn't want to blow through a lot of my Phoenix down, so I restarted the fight several times. Redis kept going down, and I was using a reverse mode or two to assist in keeping the tanks alive. Golden Needles as needed, more resurrecting, more reverse motes, and the mark eventually goes down. It was at this point that I decided that we needed to try and upgrade our weapons and our gear, so we head over to Cerobi Steep to try and find the Perseus bow. I'll go ahead and throw some screenshots a little bit later to show you the farming route that I did and where it's at. With Cerobi Steep being the next place that we're going to be leveling up anyways, I figured this was a pretty good time to try and get everyone well-rounded in armor and weapons. So right here is a picture of where the Perseus bow is that we're trying to farm. Took us about 13 minutes or so to get it, but once we do get it, it is a massive increase in damage for Fran. Super excited about that. And now it's Bosch's turn to try and get some weapon upgrades. We chose this next area because there's two potential weapon chests. There's a Mega Elixir chest, and there's also two armor chests, which have a potential to drop the Grand Helm, which is the second best helmet in the game for defenses. Unfortunately, after about 45 minutes or an hour of going through here, we didn't get a single item, so Bosch is going to continue to have this weapon with him for the rest of the game. So we move on to try and hunt Viral, who doesn't really take too kindly to melee. As you see here, my party members aren't being nice to me at all, but Fran comes through and finally decides to kill the boss for me. We do two more quick hunts that include Bray and Mind Flayer, and then we are off to the Ridorana Cataract. The Ridorana Cataract is the next place, just like Fawn Coast was, that has upgraded chests for recovery items. The high potions are now X potions, which are absolutely amazing to have. Heading a little bit further in, if you haven't died to these traps right here in a normal playthrough or your very first time through this game, then I think you may be lying to yourself. Hydro is going to be the next boss to challenge us. He can cast Firga, which causes everyone to lose all of their MP, which again doesn't really affect any of us, just like the previous bosses that seal Magick, as well as Technics. Yay! He can also inflict Doom, which is only troublesome if multiple party members have it and die at the same time, but you can remove Doom with a Remedy as long as you learn the Remedy 3 license, just like a previous boss in the playthrough. He can also inflict Sap, which I have 0 counter for, unless I use regen magic, which isn't going to be possible. I don't really think it's worth using the Quasimodo boots to prevent the sap, since the fight shouldn't drag out too long, so we eventually kill the boss, save it, and head on inside to the tower. For me, this tower was the hardest part of the playthrough due to one simple reason: I ran out of Phoenix Downs. This tower took me a while to get through with more footage than I would care to show. It was here that I noticed that Redis uses both Phoenix Downs and Arise to resurrect people when I thought it was just Arise. I started wondering why he was using Phoenix Downs instead of Arise, and then it hit me. He uses my Phoenix Downs, then uses Arise if I don't have any. Not cool, Redis. Not cool at all. Once I found this out, I was using Vaan to rush into the mobs later in the tower to take the first hit, while the others were able to 1- and 2-shot the mobs. It worked pretty well until Redis started dying, and then that led to maybe 6 or so game overs. So as long as Redis didn't die, I was able to keep progressing through the tower. Our first boss of the tower is Pandemonium. Pandemonium can cast a variety of status effects on us, such as Blindness and Petrify, which I didn't know until we started the fight. So naturally, here I am trying to recover the party, And while I'm busy curing the status alignments, I don't have time to actually heal, so we are just getting walloped in the face, and we eventually lose our entire main party and have to resort to the reserves. I think you can see where this is going to go from here. So we equip some accessories. Fran has anti-blind, Bosch has anti-petrify, and then we go ahead and deal with the rest of the status effects as they come. We go ahead and chuck out a dispel mote to get rid of the protect, and then continuously bash him down till about 50% HP. At 50%, he will become immune to all damage, so from here it's basically just a waiting game and hope that we don't die. He still hits quite hard, so now that we farmed up some X potions, I'm definitely not shy to be using them right now for the remainder of the fight. Slit will be our second boss of the tower, and we're not going to bother dispelling regen because he's just going to recast it immediately. We decide not to use the Hastega mote because I want to see how fast this boss dies. But the boss has other plans. Just look at what he does to Vaan right here. Sensor warning. That wasn't very nice. We try and switch party members, and then we actually were able to switch to Redis, which I didn't know that we could do. And then the boss dies. To proceed higher in the tower, we must give up either the ability to use items, techniques, magic, or our minimap. And so any one of them except items would have been fine with us, but we go ahead and give up our ability to cast magic. Our third boss fight is none other than Fenrir. I'm pretty glad to see that they kept similarities between Final Fantasy XII versions and the Final Fantasy IX version. Anyway, we start off with a Dispel mote to remove Haste and Protect. I'm not exactly sure what Fenrir's damage output is going to be, so we throw a couple of safety nets such as a Reverse mote and then a Hastega mote, and then I see his HP bar isn't really moving that much. I wasn't paying attention as the Reverse mote runs out and then Bosch bites the dust. It's at this point where I try and res him with the Phoenix down, but then I realize, oh hey, I don't have any more. So I try and see where the fight goes, and yeah, that's not happening. We try again, and we do even worse. Third time's the charm, and we tame the ferociousness. The third ascent is what I was referencing earlier when I mentioned if Redis dies, I had to reload. This area was brutal, and I took probably a dozen or so game overs to get to the next boss, but we eventually made it. I don't really want to talk about this area too much, so we're just going to skip right to the boss. The next fight is the Esper Hashmal, the bringer of... oh. Sensor warning.
He needs some milk!
Make it back to the Esper Hashmal, bringer of order, and tell him who his daddy is. We dispel Hashmal's haste and protect and continue to whittle him into submission. I see some immune for damage and change Bosch's weapon. Damn it, Bosch. We bring order to Hashmal, save, continue. After a few cutscenes, we are thrown into a battle with none other than Judge Gabranth. This is probably the most straightforward fight there is in the game, in my opinion. It's just tank and spank until he dies. With no breather to be had, we go right into fighting Dr. Sid. We throw a Dispel mote to get rid of his buffs. He gets absolutely chunked and dropped to 50% HP, where he brings out his Guardian Esper, Famfrit. This is the first time through the playthrough where we have an issue with our gambits, so we have to change them up to target the highest HP mob first on both characters. Once Famfrit gets below 50% HP, we can then revert our gambits back to what we originally had of targeting the lowest HP mob first, so that way they continue to focus down Famfrit, and then we can continue on to Dr. Sid. From here, I'll go ahead and let you see how the fight plays out. We came so close to dying, but thanks to Bosch, we were able to pull out the victory. After the fight, a couple more cutscenes ensue, and this is our very last opportunity to do any sort of farming before heading over to the Bahamut. So because we have been using Hastega and Reverse modes, I decided that we should try and be safe. With Reverse really being our main source of recovery, we decided to probably spend maybe another 30 minutes farming those, as well as getting about 10 or so Hastega motes, followed by some Phoenix Downs and X potions. I'll go ahead and throw up the Phoenix Down screenshot. I wish I knew about this earlier in the game. I didn't really find out about the chest farming guide until I was maybe like 30-40% the way through the game, so yeah, it is what it is, but we farmed some of those. Not gonna lie, I was getting a little antsy seeing if this challenge run would be able to be completed, or if it would fail, so we head off to the point of no return and make for the Bahamut. These series of cutscenes and cinematics are my favorite in the game because it showcases the airship, the Xezat Surgate, which I am currently building a 3D model of in LEGO using the LEGO Studio 2.0 program. More details on that can be found in the description below. I'd love it if you guys were able to check it out. There's weekly updates on multiple social platforms, and if you guys are also interested in LEGO, I'd like to see what you guys have created over in the Discord. With the number of cutscenes remaining in the game coming to a close, we enter the final place, the Sky Fortress of Bahamut. We could stay here and grind for EXP, items, LP, but we shouldn't need any more of that because nothing in here we will be able to keep. So what we're going to do is hold R2, run by all the enemies, and get straight to the elevator where we are forced into another fight with Judge Gabranth. We're going to use the same tactics as before. We dispel his buffs and throw out a reverse mote to help with Gabranth's onslaught of physical damage. We decide to use some cure motes for healing since we have been saving them up for these last few bosses. Bosch almost dies, but he manages to stay alive thanks to me. Yours truly, Bosch. I feel like this run would go a lot differently if we decided to ban reverse motes. I might do that in my next run through. I guess you could say that this judge has been judged. With no time to relax or save, we have finally arrived at the final boss of the game, his first phase. We didn't throw Dispel mode out and instead used Stega mode, and then gave Bosch some wine for him to go berserk. I wanted to pump out the damage really hard. He was going down so fast I almost game overed because he kept using these quickenings in rapid succession. Almost too quick for me to recover. It's a good thing we had a reverse mode for Bosch. Short cutscene occurs, and now for phase 2. Our Gambit setup is still having the party target the ads first, which is going to be really great considering how many ads there are on this fight. As Bosch is our frontline, we decided to use a bubble mote on him to give us some more time in healing him. Not being shy, we use some X potions to keep ourselves healthy, and then we slowly diminish Vane's HP to 0. Fran almost rips towards the end but stays alive miraculously. I decided to let this cutscene roll a little bit because I find that the graphics are just so good, especially for this being in the PlayStation 2 era. Shortly after this cutscene, we arrive at the point to where we are going to find out if the run is going to succeed or fail. I'm really looking forward to this fight, and keep in mind, this is 400% speed on video as well as 4 times speed in-game. So this is actually a pretty long fight for me. As you can see, his health bar is hidden, so we don't know when he will be using his quickenings or when he will die. We will start off with a Dispel mote, a Stega mote, and Cure mote. There's no need to hold back on any of the consumables that we have left. Bosch immediately gets hammered, so we throw out a reverse mote and hope it lands before he dies, which it does. We follow up with one on Fran too as she is taking damage, and I didn't want to risk her dying. After we stabilize a bit, we give Bosch some wine so he can go absolutely ham. We go ahead and throw a reflect emote on us, and I don't actually know if it does anything, but I just figured why not. If it helps mitigate some damage, then that's awesome. I'll go ahead and let this battle play out for a little bit. It was at this moment when I started to see everyone's HP dip, so I try and heal everyone up, but then he casts his Quickening. I'm not really too worried about it at this point, but then this ends and...
No, God! No, God, please, no! 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 No!
So I swap over to Bosch, and instead of throwing a Phoenix down right away, I throw a reverse mote to try and solidify the time that I need to try and resurrect the rest of the party. Luckily, he targets Ash, which gives me the opportunity to resurrect both Vaan and Bosch. We are now starting to finally recover, so we swap out Balthier and bring in Fran back. And at this point, I feel like we are in a really good place for continuing this run. We repop a Stega mote and we continue to try and heal everyone while Bosch and Fran do the damage. We rewind Bosch and then boom, he finally goes down. Mission accomplished. This was such a fantastic run. I have never done a challenge run before, and I'm really glad that Final Fantasy XII was able to be my first one. It really made all the difference having that 4 times speed. I don't really know if I would have been able to suffer through not having that boost. If you guys have made it this far, I really appreciate you watching this. It's been an absolute pleasure creating this, editing this, trying to insert some memes and jokes here and there, and I really just appreciate you taking the time out of your day to watch this. And so the big question is, can you beat Final Fantasy XII without doing any damage? And absolutely. With a whole bunch of other restrictions. Here's a recap of all the rules that we had in place for the run. My overall thoughts on this type of playthrough, I really enjoyed it. Again, with this being my first playthrough of a challenge run, I thought that I'd kind of take it a little bit of a step above and beyond of what maybe other people would have done. I've seen some people continue to use maybe techniques or quickenings, maybe some summons, but I decided, you know what, let's try and get rid of all that and see if we can do it. And we actually did. I found that the hardest part was probably the beginning of the game. This was before I found out about the chest guide. So I was consistently running out of Phoenix Downs. That was a really big problem for me. I feel like reverse modes just completely break the game in every single way, shape, and form. I didn't really like using it. So during the next run, I definitely want that to be banned. Maybe we can do techniques only, I'm not really sure, or have everyone use daggers, or maybe have everyone just completely unarmed. That would be a hell of a run. I feel like with this challenge run being a really big success for me, I would definitely want to continue doing more of these. Of the Final Fantasy series, it is my most favorite series. Most favorite? Is that even a phrase? I think that's bad grammar. It's my favorite series that there is. Followed by the Star Ocean series and Xenosaga. So I would definitely like to do some challenge runs of those. I think Final Fantasy X-2 is going to be my next challenge run. I'm not really sure what I want to do on that game yet. I just love the combat system in that game. I think it probably has the best combat system of all the Final Fantasies. That's probably my unpopular opinion. But all the classes in that game are just completely phenomenal. There's so many different ways to play it. It really reminds me of Final Fantasy V as well. For those of you who have played Final Fantasy V, you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of the first Final Fantasy that really branched out in terms of the classes and jobs that your characters can have. And on a side note, earlier in the video I mentioned that I was currently making a 3D Lego model of the airship Xezat Surgate, and I'm a little more than halfway done at this point, and it would be really great if you guys were able to check that out and check the progress. Maybe tell me what you think through my Discord or the other social links below. I've probably put in about 1,500 hours on the Lego project so far in terms of 3D modeling, as well as just rewatching the entire Final Fantasy XII movie. That's already on YouTube with all the cutscenes and cinematics, marking down the timestamps of where the ship actually appears, kind of replaying everything, trying to figure out proportions. And it's just been a really fun process. It's probably why I decided to do a challenge run of Final Fantasy XII in the first place. So that was definitely a pretty big motivational piece for me right there. I really appreciate each and every one of you who have been able to last this far listening to my voice and watching this video. As with every person ever says on YouTube, if you liked the video, feel free to like, subscribe, comment, share, you know, all that algorithm stuff that people continuously say. I'd really appreciate it, and until then, hope to see you on the Discord or other socials, and we'll see you in the next challenge run.